Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Puerto Rico may become the world's #1 destination for CBD manufacturers, and it all boils down to dollars and cents. Puerto Rico right now is offering incentives that can't be matched by any other country in the world, and yet Puerto Rico is right in our backyard as a U.S. territory. It's currently offering no U.S. income taxes for selling products within the U.S., duty-free importing for products from the United States, low corporate tax rates as low as 4%, exempt real estate on personal property taxes, with as little as one shareholder forming a corporation. As a protected U.S. territory, Puerto Rico offers unique benefits to its corporations, including no U.S. taxes for selling products in the U.S., duty-free imports of products from the U.S., low corporate tax rates, real estate and personal property taxes exempt during the first year, and only one shareholder can form a corporation with no minimum authorized capital, and nominee shareholders and directors can be appointed. Puerto Ricans are American citizens but don't have the right to vote in federal election and don't have congressional representation. And since there can't be taxation without representation, Puerto Rico does not pay federal taxes. Instead, Puerto Rico has its own tax code, and the IRS has special rules that apply to Puerto Rico. Within this framework, Puerto Rico is able to make its own taxation laws for companies operating from Puerto Rico. The government of Puerto Rico has taken this opportunity to create the Act 20 and 22 tax incentives, among other tax incentives and economic development initiatives. Puerto Rico has a corporate tax rate as low as 4%. The applicable tax rate on net long-term capital gains, dividends, and partnership distribution is 10%. Ordinary taxable income is taxed on a progressive tax rate from 0 to 33%. Act 20 offers an attractive tax incentive for companies at a fixed rate of 4% and minimal requirements that establish and expand the export service industry on the island. The tax incentives are guaranteed for 20 years. Some of the incentives include products imported from the U.S. exempt from duty taxes, 100% tax exemption on dividends, 60% exemption on municipal taxes, and no federal taxes on Puerto Rico sourced income. Some of the qualifying services are for research and development. So if you're looking for a different terpene flavor, or you're growing a different strain, or you're simply hiring a scientist to do some R&D, regardless, you need to have an entity in Puerto Rico doing something. You could do advertising, marketing, public relations, basically anything on the internet for social media. And that could also be bilingual. Everyone there speaks Spanish, and so you could just pay somebody at a call center or a professional PR firm, but regardless, you need to be looking into that. Other qualifying services are consulting and management, and any other service designated by the Secretary of the Department of Economic Development and Commerce of Puerto Rico. That one guy literally can just approve whatever. Act 22 is a law to encourage the relocation of individual investors to Puerto Rico, offering a total tax exemption on passive income generated or accumulated once that individual is a bona fide resident of Puerto Rico. We'll get into it in a moment, but essentially, if you're there 6 months, you qualify. But there's a tax-free for the first year on deductions up to 100% on real estate and personal property taxes. And individuals and businesses pay 0% on capital gains tax on assets acquired after moving to Puerto Rico. Act 73 is Puerto Rico's Economic Incentives for Development Act. It creates a maximum income tax of 4%, has tax credits of up to 50% for the purchase of local and recycled products, which could be hemp biomass or plastics or otherwise. They're offering a tax credit up to 50% for research and development for agricultural businesses, and special deductions for investments of infrastructure, machinery, and equipment. The Agricultural Incentives Law provides incentives for bona fide farmers and agricultural businesses, including a 90% exemption on contributions on earnings that are derived directly from the agricultural business if the farmer hasn't already benefited from the provisions, as well as 100% exemption on any of the payments going to Puerto Rico's Treasury Department and fees to register the property used in the agricultural business. 100% exemption on municipal taxes on intensive agricultural activity, 100% exemption on property taxes on land, building, equipment, and vehicles owned, leased, or are used intensively in the agricultural business. The Act for Tourism Development provides incentives for a variety of projects such as agricultural tourism and medical tourism. This includes up to 100% tax exemption on excise tax on imported goods, up to 100% tax exemption on sales and use tax. There's a tax credit up to 50% on all cash paid for equity, or 10% tax credit on the total project cost. Regardless of where you're at, it's probably beneficial to at least look at having some entity in Puerto Rico, whether it's a bilingual call center, research and development team, or otherwise. You can have storage, you can have shipping, you can avoid import tariffs by having. Side note, I'm not an attorney or an accountant, but in theory, you can circumnavigate the trade tariffs by using Puerto Rico as a go-between and avoiding some of those higher taxes. The current administration is already imposing some tariffs on China, is expected to have a direct impact on several sectors in the cannabis industry, in particular the cannabis vaporizer companies. Others are likely to be affected to include the cultivation operations that want to expand their greenhouse facilities, growers that need to buy lighting equipment, brands that purchase packaging equipment from China, and businesses that buy materials made from Chinese-made steel and aluminum, such as extraction equipment. So what do you need to do to qualify to be a bona fide resident of Puerto Rico? It's pretty easy. You need to spend 6 months on the island. You need to file a new local LLC business license or corporation. The owner must receive a reasonable salary based on the services provided, so you can't just pay somebody $1 or a penny a year. It needs to be real. And that business must file an annual report, including information such as applicable permits, certifications, licenses, and registrations. And your decree may require hiring a local employee. And so what are some of the current opportunities? They range widely. I've got one client in San Juan. He's got 250 acres, approximately 30 minutes from the airport, 45 minutes from the cruise terminals in Old San Juan. The property is by the touristy Cocoa Beach area. It sits right behind Trump's old golf course and is ready for hemp cultivation and processing, as well as medical marijuana tourism, which both have significant tax credits or exemptions. The University of Puerto Rico is also interested in the hemp project, as well as their Department of Agriculture, although that client is severely delinquent on all payments since the last hurricane. Other opportunities include a publicly traded entity called ISO Corp. They have cultivation and manufacturing licenses, 3 dispensary licensing, with additional land approved for expansion and producing and processing cannabis. ISO is a science and technology company using innovative and proprietary products and technologies to promote wellness, cures, and remedies. Their activities span across the entire continuum of therapeutic medicinal cannabis applications, from plant reproduction to precision cultivation to hydroponic extraction to drug delivery. Their goals are to maximize the worldwide sales opportunities for their proprietary and disruptive cultivation and extraction technologies. And after a few years of development and over $4 million in investment, they're beginning to aggressively commercialize and take their unique growing and extraction systems to market. Their leadership and world-class scientific teams have the skills and experience to execute their business plan and continue with the R&D mandate. And their revenue model is expected to achieve strong margins with substantial EBITDA and cash flow. Utilizing Puerto Rico, the ideal scenario is to have some sort of entity in Puerto Rico. You operate anywhere. You incorporate in Canada and eventually be on an indice where you're publicly traded, you're on an index or ETF, and then you're global. Canadian cannabis consumer packaged goods firm Slang Worldwide has formed a partnership with Southern Development Holdings to sell its cannabis products in Puerto Rico. Toronto-based Slang granted an exclusive license to SDH to produce the Slang products in Puerto Rico. Under the partnership agreement, SDH would manufacture and sell Slang's products in medical cannabis dispensaries throughout Puerto Rico. Slang will receive royalty payments and each Slang branded product sold in Puerto Rico. The partnership is expected to begin sales in the second quarter of 2019. Puerto Rico has one of the highest numbers of medical cannabis patients per capita of the U.S. territories. As of February 2019, there were more than 59,000 patients in 71 dispensaries, according to the Puerto Rico Department of Health. Puerto Rico is also the only place in the world as an American that you can go and not be forced to pay income tax. So Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, but they don't have congressional representation and they can't vote in federal elections. And since there can't be taxation without representation, you don't pay U.S. income tax. Now, Puerto Ricans have their own tax system, but after the last Hurricane Maria, they revised what's called Act 20 and Act 22. There's Act 73 and 74, depending on if you're going to live there or just work there, or if you're going to work on exports or other opportunities. But essentially, Puerto Rico is the only place in the world that you can go and not be forced to pay income tax. So there's a 4% corporate tax cap. You have 50% tax credits. There's 100% tax deductions. And in fact, your first year, everything is tax deductible. So Puerto Rico is probably the number one place in the world for any, let's say, CBD company for now. Puerto Rico is the number one place in the world for any CBD company to do business because of the tax advantages. So you can operate anywhere in the world, have your headquarters in Puerto Rico 6 months out of the year, 183 days is the qualification, but still you can go up to Canada, you can register up there with an attorney and then eventually do a reverse takeover, or if you have more money, you can do a traditional IPO. And so you have all of those advantages of initially being able to have some tax advantages in the US while still looking for additional capital up in Canada and operating in between. So Puerto Rico is definitely a growing cannabis market. Puerto Rico offers reciprocal dispensary access to out-of-town visitors who hold active cannabis medical marijuana licenses from qualified state programs, as well as online registration for those interested in obtaining a medical cannabis permit. Slang is quoted as saying, "We're excited to bring our high-quality brands to consumers in Puerto Rico and the Latin American market. Building global brands requires teamwork, leveraging partnerships with the highest caliber operations, enhancing Slang's brand share and revenue with impressive scalability." And with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge, your cannabis business podcast. Like, subscribe, and share, or don't. And I'm out.